It was definitely not an idea to be a stuntman. I started at Medieval Times in California. It was a job. Did that for 12 and a half years, and then after that, just kind of got the bug to be a stuntman. I don't think anybody ever really grows up going, I'm gonna jump off of things and light myself on fire for a living. It just kind of happens.
It's more of a love for the storytelling, wanting to be, Medieval Times was always something as a kid. I saw it and like, I must do this. I want to do this thing, being on horses, doing the sword fairs, grew up loving that kind of stuff. Whether it be like, the actual swords and armor, the ideals of chivalry, that kind of thing. So when an opportunity came around where a friend of mine, he and I would talk about it at work, and it'd be so awesome, kind of one of those things. We went separate ways, and then kind of hit up, and he's like, hey, can you help me move? I'm like, sure. He's like, dude, I'm at Medieval Times. I'm like, no way. He's like, you want to do it? I'm like, absolutely. And I mean, I'd done like, sports and stuff like that, so I was athletic, and he introduced me to the right people, and they're like, you want to do it? I'm like, yeah. Can you do it? I think so. And then like, get on the horse, and I was like, okay, and from there on, it was just learning, the show, as it were. And so to me, it was never like, oh, I'm going to learn how to do these different stunts, or I'm going to put myself in the position of doing these particular stunts, as much as being a part of a story that involved the stunts.
You know what they say, that you just kind of fall into it, but honestly, I've always loved just acting and martial arts. I've done that since I was 4. I love pro wrestling, He-Man, Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, like all that stuff. So seeing that, like, oh my God, if I can do that, like as like a day-to-day job, then I'll be the happiest person ever. For this specifically, I started at Medieval Times, and I was there for a few years. I did multiple different things. I started as a squire in Atlanta, a knight apprentice there. Then I was a knight in Orlando for a little while, and then I was a Lord Marshal at the Scottsdale Castle.
I always wanted to perform, and I knew there was a Medieval Times close by, so I applied at the New Jersey one. They weren't hiring. They said, we're building a new castle in Maryland, which is a couple hours away, if you want to try them. So I went down there, applied, got it, worked there for about 4 or 5 years, transferred to the one in Southern California. And after that we started doing this with these guys. So that was kind of I wanted to learn how to jump off a horse without dying in sword fight. I thought that would give me a little bit of an advantage in getting other roles, acting roles. And it's kind of helped out.
For 200 years, my people have guarded that secret. Come with me to my grave, or yours.
A lot of people ask like how much we practice, and at this point we don't practice much. It's just been doing it for so long, it's pretty easy to just go in and doing it. Occasionally we'll work out different fights and we'll go over them 10, 15 minutes before we start getting ready. We'll be like, oh, let's try this, and so we'll kind of go over it and be like, yeah, it seems like it's working, let's do it in the show. So yeah, it's just, we've been doing it as long as most of us have. Me and Jeff, the Scottish Knight, worked together for a little over 10 years and fought each other almost every single night when we were working together. So I pretty much know he's going to move before he even thinks about moving, and how he's going to move. So it makes it a lot easier when you're working with the same guys doing stuff over and over and over. And he has never hit me. I have never hit him. Both of us have come back bleeding a little bit, nothing bad. And most of it is because either we didn't come far enough around with our sword and bumped ourselves in the head, and then you just start bleeding like crazy. We've hit ourselves, but we've never hit each other. And we, like I said, we go to town on it. I like the head chop game, mainly because at Medieval Times we didn't do that one. Like I said, the crowd tends to like it. It is definitely one of the more difficult games, as silly as that sounds, because I've done so many big rings and small ring passes that even people are like, wow, I can't believe you can get that ring. It's only like this big with that long lance. And it's like, well, yeah, but I've practiced it over and over. So the head chop game is actually one of the more difficult ones, especially trying to just shave it without cutting it in half makes it a more difficult game. So that's probably the one that I enjoy doing the most.
The head cabbage game, that's just a lot of fun, just to go down there, just like go at a canter and just chop something. I mean, how would that not be fun?
When I do it right, I really like that ride by cabbage cut. It's fun, makes you feel knightly. But really the rings, I think, are one of the most fun, because you can line it up and it feels more like a game that you're almost like bobbing for apples or something like that, but it just feels more like a game that's fun to do. Whereas the other javelin and the cabbage cut even too, you get one shot. So it's a little bit of that pressure to be like, hey, you need to get the horse lined up. You need to make sure he's going at a certain, well, speed doesn't really matter as much as just, you know, lined up closer to the rail, you know, so I'm not have to reach out, whatever. And so there's a lot of that thinking kind of stress before you even get to that part. And then it's like, oh, you missed it or you whatever. But the rings are fun because it's just you get to ride. And as you're riding, you can concentrate a little bit more on the process at hand, as it were.
I love the little ring game, but I freaking hate the little ring game. When we used to work at Medieval Times, if I didn't get my little ring, you only get one pass over there. I punched holes in walls, you know, when you get back, I flip tables. It bugs the hell out of me when you can't do it. Because 9 times out of 10 I can get it, but that one time, like what happened on that one time? Why didn't I get it? So I guess the little ring is, I have a love-hate relationship with the little ring game.
Nothing to take away from the Hollywood stuff. Obviously it's a blast to be able to go, oh yeah, I was on this film or I was working with this actor or whatever, but these live shows, there's nothing like them. I mean, when you do a stunt on a film, you get the applause from all the people behind the camera after it's safe and they're like, good, and you're like, yeah, good, and they're like, oh man, that was awesome. But riding out of our gates and the crowd going so loud you can't hear the music, there's just nothing like that. That, and at the end of it, when you meet the kids, like that's what 12 and a half years at Medieval Times, and people would say, how have you done this for so long, jumping off horses day in, day out, every single night? And, you know, not saying that it paid terrible, but it sure didn't pay for what we were putting our bodies through. But every time they asked, I was like, the kids. I'm like, you go up and meet them after the show, and they come up like with their sword and their shield asking you for an autograph, and the look in their face of like almost afraid to even approach you like you're some kind of superhero was the whole reason I did it. I mean, every single time it was like, this is why. This is why I'm putting my body through what I'm putting it through, because of these kids that, you know, world's kind of a crappy place, and especially when you're a kid, and if you, for 20 minutes, you can make an impression on them that is a lifetime of them remembering. I remember that night talking to me like I was a person. That's like I said, that's why I've done it as long as I have.
There are definitely people that come every week, and you know they you know, hey, I was here last week, and yeah, I mean it's nice. It's nice to talk to the fans afterwards.
What you do? Sounds like an understandable reaction.
I mean, you get people that, oh, I guess now with social media, you get ones that will, you know, follow you, and for the most part, they're super cool, and you just kind of become friends. And then they support you with everything, which is really great. You know, especially with nowadays, again, with like everyone's all about how many likes you have, how many reshares, retweets, you know, so on and so forth. So that's really cool. But it's just fun too, just as like an actor and character-wise, to be out there and like have people either boo you, which I love. I love just playing a natural heel, but having them be like, "Oh, we love you!" Like, "Oh, that's really," you know, like me myself. I'm like, yeah, of course they love me, but no, it's the character. So as the character, you just have fun with that. So it kind of fuels you for your show.
I mean, we still get nervous. It's obviously, again, a live animal that has a mind of its own. So you're hoping, I always, you know, tell the guys, like we got our 2 new guys this year. I said, a good show is we all come back and nobody's hurt. That's a good show.
A dream gig, oh man. I always wanted to be Jack Tripper on Three's Company. Can I still do that? Is that like a thing? Who do I call?
I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So if I could like go back in time and be one of the Rohirrim making those big charges or those kinds of things, like that would be like ideal, or that kind of thing. Any of those kinds of, whether it be on horseback or combat, I love that. Historical fiction to, you know, high fantasy, like those kinds of things. To me, it's not like a specific thing, like, oh, I want to do that one thing, as much as in general, like that would be sweet, you know, be really stoked to do it.
Being the Red Ranger for Power Rangers, being He-Man, or a Ninja Turtle would be great. The ones that I grew up with, that would be probably my dream one, or a superhero of some sort, like Batman or Thor.
I don't know that I have a dream. Like, I've always wanted to act more than I kind of fell into the stunt work. Like, I would rather, like, if I, like a Game of Thrones character would be awesome, because you get to do both at the same time. That would be cool. Or Batman.
I would do any Star Wars movie. Like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So like the Mandalorian TV show, any of that stuff, if they were like, hey, I'd be there in a heartbeat. That would be, again, the starstruck, if you want to call it that, where you're like, oh man, I'm on a Star Wars set, there's Jedi over there, there's stormtroopers. That would be personally one I would love to do. But as far as a good stunt job, anything that is easy and you're still getting paid. There's obviously more extreme stuff. You see the guys that are flipping vehicles and then rolling them, a bunch of times. And the last one that I filmed was in a karate dojo, and we were doing karate stuff, and the floor was padded, and it's made for people to fall on. And I was like, this is the way to go, man. If I could do everything in a floor, most of the time it's like, oh, it's concrete. We got to hide pads, or you're going to have to put pads on under your clothes and you're still taking the hits. It's like, this was easy. We didn't have to put pads on. The whole floor was padded. It was great. I was talking to the other stunt guys. I'm like, man, this is the best stunt gig ever. I'm like, getting paid to fall on a floor that's already soft? That's the way to go. So yeah, there's the two of it, where it's like, yes, I'd love to do stuff again with anything that I got a huge connection with, like Star Wars, and have my whole life. But a good stunt job is one that's easy, where you're like, cool, I'm not gonna have to be in a vehicle that's flipping 16 times. Yay.
Like, I've done some boxing and stuff like that. So when you've done these kinds of things, being hit or getting struck or those kinds of things aren't so scary, because you've experienced it in some way, shape, or form. And so you're a lot more calm and collected in situations of high stress.
It is definitely an art form, and it's not something that you can just jump in and do. It takes a lot of training, a lot of dedication, and a lot of safety.
Every one of us, a lot of guys and girls that put their bodies through a lot of stuff, and it's just be nice if they got just a little more, applause for it. And like I said, we get that doing the live shows. So here it's a little different. I don't have to worry about not getting the recognition. I mean, I walk through the fair and everybody's like, oh my gosh, there he is, it's French night. And it's like, yay. But especially Hollywood, it would be nice to get more recognition, get the word out. Hey, these stunt people are people. They're putting their lives on the line so that you can go to a movie and be entertained, and, a little more recognition, applause, awards, whatever would be nice for the entire stunt industry.